How screwed are we as a country? Is it the responsibility of both the left and the right? How might it connect to big business? These are all questions that I think have a pretty obvious answer. Welcome to Philosophy All Along. I'm a professional philosopher, and I like to use the tools of philosophy to help me understand things on a deeper level. Okay, so there is really good reason to believe that the ways in which our country is starting to fall apart and the rights that we are losing and the incredible amount of wealth disparity that we're experiencing, in other words, why many of you, certainly myself, struggle financially even though we work all the time. You might find yourself working 6-7 days a week. You're working 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-hour days, and you cannot get ahead. A lot of you are probably working multiple jobs these days, and yet somehow you still can't afford what you would think of as a normal middle-class life. So what's happening here? Well, I think it's all part of a broader scheme. And what that scheme is actually pitting us in these lower and middle classes against each other. So let me start with a little bit of a story in my own experience of why I think we are very, 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 very much in a bad place. So as you obviously know, I do YouTube videos, and normally those videos are seen as being more leftist. I get savaged in the comments, right? MAGA people like to come in and tell me how stupid and ugly I am, et cetera, et cetera. It's all par for the course. That's fine. And what I have noticed is in many cases, they don't even watch the video, or they just watch, the beginning of it, realize that I'm some left-leaning moron, and then they tell me, whatever insult they want to tell me about my personage. Great. Now, what's interesting about this is not long ago, I had put out a video that I made the title, Is Trump an Economic Genius? ? And the whole idea there is as well, let's kind of bring people in and have a conversation about whether or not what Trump is doing is in fact effective and smart and a sign of him, being some sort of economic genius. And of course, my answer is going to be what he is doing is part of a plan that I think at the end of the day is going to do tremendous harm to the working class. So many of you disagree, that's fine. But what's interesting about this is the video goes out, it's getting a bunch of views. I check the comments and leftists are savaging me in the comments. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? They're saying, he is obviously not an economic genius. You're ridiculous. Why would you say such a thing? And I'm going, wait a minute. Did you watch the video? So I'm checking with people in the comments. Hey, I think we actually agree about Donald Trump here. Did you watch the video? And they're like, no, why would I watch something so ridiculous? Now, I will admit, the left insults were generally more polite and a little bit more thoughtful than the ones coming in from the right, but it still was deeply problematic insofar as they were commenting on a thing that they hadn't actually watched, but they were telling me how bad it was, like how stupid it was. So I even, spoke with a couple of them saying like, did you watch it? And one guy got so incensed when I was like, did you watch it? And he's like, no, why would I watch it? I was like, because I think we agree with each other. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. I don't need to watch it to know you're wrong. I'm like, but we both agree that Donald Trump is problematic. And he's like, well, I don't know. And then he blocked me when I pointed out the fact that I think that that's part of the problem. In other words, if people are having opinions and commenting about things, but they actually don't know what's being said, then how are we actually helping the dialogue? In a country that's supposed to be a democracy, we have to be very well researched, right? You go and you make decisions for the whole country as a voter, not just deciding who's going to make the decisions, but we often make decisions about things like taxation and policy through our voting. So we need to make sure we know what we're talking about. So that's why I think we are profoundly screwed. It is not just a matter of people on the right not doing their research, not knowing what's going on. People on the left will comment on MAGA as if they're stupid and they're ignorant and they don't understand. But the fact of the matter is, people on the left are clearly doing the same thing. We cannot be here on the left saying, well, you need to do your research and you need to take the wool off of your eyes so that you can see what Donald Trump is actually doing, while we don't actually do our own research and we're commenting on things that we disagree with and we don't actually know what's being said. But I think this is a purposeful strategy by the people in power. In other words, what's happening? Okay, now whatever side you happen to be on, If you are watching this, there's an excellent chance you are not making over $100,000 a year. How do I know this? Because the vast majority of people in the United States are not making more than that. Many of them are not making anywhere near that. There are a few people, however, who are making much more than that, much, much more than that. And what do they benefit from? Well, think about where they have the money and how they make their money. They make it through corporations and business interests and stocks, passive income, all that kind of stuff, which benefits from us not working together. When workers unionize, when they unite together, when they speak up, when they vote together, they are a danger to corporate interests. So it's very much in the best interest of the people with the most power and the most wealth to keep us divided. And they do it, there's a long history of it. There's great examples throughout the history of the United States, ranging from during slavery, when they would pick different groups of people to be slaves, and they realized, oh, okay, well, if you have white indentured servants and black slaves, and you treat them on the same level, well, then they are going to rebel together, and then you have a really large rebellion. But if you kind of separate them and you put the white indentured servants over the black slaves, well, all of a sudden, now you have a much smaller chance of them being willing to revolt together. Plantation owners would do this with Asian workers. They would take workers from Japan, China, and the Philippines, and they realized, wow, okay, when they are all together viewing each other as equals, they're way more likely to unionize, complain about wages, work together. So what they would do is they would divide them. They would pay them at different rates so that they would develop resentment amongst each other. And whilst they were busy fighting amongst each other for scraps, the wealthy plantation owners were making all the money and they had all the power. So if you're a MAGA person, you're looking at DEI and you're going, how dare they? They're getting this job that I deserve. They're not making much more money than you are. Let's be super honest. You might be, well, yeah, they're making some more money. Yeah, but they're still going to work, right? You're going to work. They're going to work. Even if you don't think they got their job fairly, y'all are going to work. You're going to jobs. There's an excellent chance you probably don't even like your job that much, but you toil away at it and you work hoping that your family will be able to do better. But you know who isn't? People in business finance, these people, not just at the very top, but if you have something like $10 million in the bank, which amongst the wealthy is a small amount. Billionaires make fun of millionaires. If you have $10 million in the bank at 1% interest, you get $100,000 a year. That's more money than I make annually. I don't know about you. In other words, they have enough money that they could just live off of the interest with just $10 million. And let's be honest, that's at a 1% interest rate. Most of these people are finding ways and places to put their money that they're making way more than 1% interest. We are in a position where those people know that if the vast majority of people, in other words, the people who don't have that much wealth, the people who have to go to work, the people who can't just put their money in some sort of investment and watch it grow. In other words, the rest of us, if we all worked together, they wouldn't be able to stop us. Our voting power, our financial power would be too extreme. Look at companies right now, right? So you have a company like maybe Walmart and a company like Target. Well, they have their struggles because right now people on the left are annoyed at them and they're doing things like boycotts. Okay, well, as long as it isn't also people on the right, Target and Walmart will be able to survive that. They'll take a little bit of a hit, but they'll be like, it's okay, we'll survive. But if both people on the left and people on the right were like, you know what? You're making money off of harming us, we'd be unstoppable. One brief example of where they actually are and how they actually thinking. My grandfather was a very hardworking man. You know the kind of guy who defines himself by his work. And his intention was to work until the day he died. After he retired, he still went to work at Walmart, partly to make enough money to survive because retirement doesn't pay that much, but partly because he believed in hard work. So there he is, employed at Walmart, and he starts getting this tumor, right, that you can see it, and it's nasty. So they start demoting him. He's finally just at a position where he's a people greeter, kind of there sitting at a stool as this cancer kills him. He slips off the stool one day, and guess what they did? Boom, they fired him because as a person, he did not matter. He was a financial liability. If he could claim something like workman's comp or he got hurt there at work, well, then that's a possible lawsuit. So this man spent the last couple of months of his life feeling completely valueless because the company that he had vested in and spent I don't know, more than a decade of his life working for and believing in, fired him. And you all have stories like that. You know it and I know it. It isn't just a matter of, okay, people on the right are hardworking. People on the left are hardworking too. But the people at the very top, they don't have to do anything. They just move their money around and make money off of your hard work. Passive income does not exist. The idea that, okay, I'm going to put money in this stock and it's going to grow and I don't have to work and it's just happening magically. No, that money grows because somebody did the work. Some lots of employees did all of the hard work to build that car, to make that thing, to drive that something somewhere, right? They did all of that hard work, but because they didn't get paid the full value of their labor, someone else gets to make passive income off of it. So yes, I do think that we are profoundly screwed because as long as we are continuing to fight amongst each other, which is exactly what they want, we are not voting together with our dollars, we are not boycotting together, we are not voting together as a bloc in political elections, they're getting exactly what they want. And yes, that includes Donald Trump, who, yes, is a billionaire, and yes, is hiring more billionaires, and yes, is firing people right now, including veterans, so that his billionaires can make more money. All right. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, please like, please subscribe, please share it with other people. If you agree, if you disagree, that's fine. Put it in the comments. I'm always happy to engage polite disagreement. Thank you for your time and have a good day.